Before we begin today's video, I just want to apologize because I initially recorded the video for this, but the audio was corrupted and it showed all sorts of messed up sound. So basically I have to do this voiceover instead. First, let me briefly talk about China revising its national defense education law to basically focus on brainwashing elementary kids now. To call it national defense education, it's more like indoctrination starting in grade 1 to further prepare Xi Jinping's new generation of red soldiers. The law will force teachers to teach about the CCP's enemies, aka Japan and the US, which will inevitably create a new generation of nationalistic youth. The revision specifically focuses on injecting a national defense mindset into the elementary level, providing basic military training at the junior high level and a proper military camp at the high school level. Now, in comparison, the US also actually had a law passed in 1958, also called National Defense Education Act. But look at the text here. The focus is on getting schools to promote post-secondary education, which is to compete against the Soviet in science and technology. But the CCP version is focusing on nationalism, hatred, and brainwashing, and perhaps even the cult of personality of Xi Jinping. Think about it. What does a kid in grade 1 need a national defense mindset for? Clearly, it's for the military, or at least prepare for an eventual need for them to become cannon fodders. Although the CCP has always placed a focus on brainwashing, right now, because China's internal economic downturn has, I think, shaken the foundation of the CCP's rule. And because the outside world is feeling the geopolitical tensions, it's imperative to prepare for war internally and gain that domestic unison before they go outward and, for example, say, try to invade Taiwan. And requiring that is the total ideological control or the grasp of ideological education. In the past, China's national defense education always focused on the university campuses, adults or young adults, but now it seems like they're extending it downward through the revision of the law. So basically, the main purpose is to instill in students the thoughts of loving the party, loving the country, and consolidating the love for Xi Jinping as the center of the CCP, so that they can grow up and obey any decision that Xi Jinping orders. And this, of course, is them immersed in this nationalistic perspective from a young age. Now, in the past few years, we've also seen Chinese companies reintroduce what's called the People's Armed Forces, and that was during the Mao Zedong's era. Now, the CCP basically wants a total war preparation mode before it is ready to invade Taiwan or invading Taiwan, simply because if an invasion happens, everything from public opinion to cannon fodders to just everyday citizens, they must all think the same. Otherwise, Xi's plan would fail. Because, if you have domestic troubles, protests, oppositions, that's not going to go well. All right, that's a short summary of this change or revision into the national security, national defense education law. Let's move on to our main topic today. This Chinese YouTuber Chi Baba Talk revealed her relatives in China have been harassed, all because she posted a video predicting the future of the CCP and the downfall of the CCP. She revealed audio logs and chats with her relative in China who was taken to the local police to pressure them, in turn to pressure her, and to try to get them to convince her to delete the videos. Fortunately, though, because her immediate family have all moved to the US, that the Ministry of State Security, or MSS, which is China's version of the CIA, they've been unable to reach her directly. So instead, they found the ways through the relatives, harassing them, pressured their livelihood to try to deliver pressure on behalf of the government overseas. Now, according to her, the MSS initially wanted her to delete all her videos. She, of course, didn't comply. And then they insisted that she delete the one video. Now, what exactly does she talk about in this one video? Well, she basically gave a bold prediction on how the CCP will collapse after they attempt to invade Taiwan, and at the same time continue to move toward a North Korea-esque total state control. That actually sounds pretty rational if you think about it. Given Xi Jinping's increasing centralization of power, it's walking toward a North Korea-like regime already. And Xi Jinping is very prepared to have the Xi family, or at least the last name of tying to Xi, just like Mao, to be that of the equivalence to the party. And Xi Jinping is preparing to invade Taiwan, so none of what she said was actually out of the ordinary or irrational. And of course, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, but as she claimed multiple times in that video, this is just a prediction based on her, watching the events unfolding in China. So it's just her opinion. But why is MSS so keen on removing it if it's just, all an opinion? Is that the CCP saying that people are now not entitled to their own opinions? Or maybe they're confirming that this is actually the exact route in which Xi Jinping plans to go. So basically, she revealed some state secrets. The thing that makes me quite angry is that her relatives, they're being used to pressure her. Their excuse is that, oh, Chi-Chi, your family is now in the US, but what about us? What about our livelihood? What about our lives if you continue to post anti-CCP stuff? This is a classic persuasion tactic used by the CCP. They basically clamp down on the family or the relatives, use these ties and relationships to pressure the person they actually want to get to. Now, we know that by any law, a criminal being punished does not extend to their immediate family members or any relatives. But the CCP is deliberately creating this terror scenario in which they say that by association or guilt by association, that your family will also suffer. Many people and many dissidents, especially religious groups, when they won't recant for their beliefs or give up what they want to do, what they will do is go pressure the family, say, we're going to force your boss at work to fire you, or we're going to make sure that you suffer. And in turn, you're going to be feeling the pressure from your relatives if they're also not doing well, because everybody seems to think that you're the problem. And in turn, it's like they're gaslighting you into thinking that, oh, if I don't give up, that's the end of our entire lineage from existing in China. So using persuasion to return to China through these type of tactics, coercion, harassment, even just bribery, or even any other combination of these sorts of tactics, they've used it to commit transnational repression against various different groups. Now, Chi-Chi asked her relative if she will be arrested when she returned to China as a political criminal. And her relative took a long pause before saying, oh, we should stop talking about this topic. Of course, she held her ground, and she says that she's an independent person, and all these coercive tactics aren't going to work. And in a follow-up video, Chi-Chi says that criticizing the regime where they used to live is a fundamental right. To talk about China, to dive deep into understanding China's current situation, is not to hate China. And she says that people in China have been gaslighted to avoid this, which is true. In China, everything is sensitive. Everything is political. People always say, oh, we don't talk about politics in China. And then what happens is they turn around and they start gaslighting people outside of China to comply to the same sort of measures and standards. And then she even says in the video that, well, that particular one didn't really do well in terms of views. It's only got 20-something K views. So why would the Ministry of State Security be so worried about that one video? Well, because Xi Jinping was mentioned in a negative manner. Now, according to another YouTuber, Toronto Big Face, who was also approached by the MSS about becoming a propaganda channel, he says that the number one most sensitive topic is Xi Jinping. So he was offered funding and in exchange would not mention Xi Jinping's name. Occasionally, he would also be required to provide propaganda on his channel. Now, this is very common. Chinese language YouTubers, particularly talking about politics in China, they've likely all been approached by the MSS, especially if they also have social media presence like on Twitter. The MSS would actively seek out influencers outside of China in an attempt to buy their influence. Some of them are arranged to speak critically of the CCP, but then occasionally at critical moments, especially when it comes at a stop point where the public opinion is so against them, they will come out and they actually switch their tone to sound very pro-CCP. So they call this style called small criticisms big help, meaning that they will often blur the lines of right and wrong and then play a very mellow middle type of opinion. So the most advanced MS recruits are actually channels that sound indistinguishable to most people. Now, the question is, have I ever been approached by the MSS? Actually, no. I feel kind of left out. I guess I'll just stick with taking CIA money. Just kidding. Anyways, so yes, people are probably watching YouTube in China as their daily job. They carefully study and, basically watch all sorts of channels that talk about China, both positively and negatively. Then they try to approach those that they think, even though they're negative, still has a potential to become positive in the long run. Now, China has long talked about controlling the discourse, directing the conversation, grabbing the narrative. But it seems lately, though, the CCP has evolved into grabbing the narrative about Xi Jinping. So China's state security, public security as well, which is the police, they often hold key surveillance attention on prohibiting comments on the Chinese leader. So in China, you can't do that, of course. You'll get jailed. A recent live streamer was actually suspended because somebody basically asked if Xi Jinping was a dictator or not. and he was flustered. But so you're not even allowed to mention their name. This is very strange, right? Considering on the, Western social media, so to speak, YouTube, Twitter, you can do whatever you want. You can, call out Biden, you can bash Trump, whatever you want to do. But, right, if in China you can't do that, they're now extending that rule outside of China. So if you criticize the government severely, they may not care that much. You talk about all those human rights, they're like blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to Xi Jinping, they're very eager to defend his name. So Chi also said this. She's released over 100 videos. She's criticized many different aspects about China, yet Xi Jinping's name is the only video that they still want her to delete. Now, according to a Twitter blogger who posts about many great content on China, Teacher Lee, that account talks about how if you have an account on Twitter impersonating Xi Jinping or making fun of him, some sort of a satirical account, those were specifically monitored by the Ministry of State Security. In fact, Teacher Lee recently attempted a social experiment. He posted a tweet with Xi Jinping's portraits, and the usual CCP troll bot accounts, they no longer bash him. Instead, they all turn around to praise him. And that means these accounts are probably run by the state security. Now they're placed in a dilemma where they cannot bash anything at the presence of Xi Jinping's portrait, but their robot AI program is too dumb to distinguish who they're praising, so they ended up praising the enemy this time. He also did another test where every single tweet he sends out ends with Xi Jinping, so in Chinese, of course, and most of them also no longer have bashful comments anymore. It's like the magical repellent of CCP bugs, Xi Jinping's name. All right, thanks again for listening to this episode of China Insider, and unfortunately, I apologize again that the video form won't be appearing. I'll try to put some B-rolls on there. But if you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, bye-bye.